Hello and welcome back to Block Talk, the show that has critics saying, it's alright, I guess. I'm your host with the most, Green Phlegm, and I dig straight down because I ain't no baby. My next guest is someone that you all should know about. His mods are more in depth than most others out there, and the variety in them is staggering. Please welcome to the stage, Reika.
Does
Hello.
that work?
Yeah, perfect. So if you want to sit down. Hello.
Oh, I just right click it.
Yeah,
Okay. There
yeah.
we go.
Sorry, I know I probably should have explained it. It's a whole new world with these little micro blocks, man. Um,
Yeah, I've not done much of these newer mods.
I don't know if you're creative. I'm not creative at all when it comes to designing these types of things.
Not with this sort of thing.
So yeah, I mean, I just want to start by introducing you. You're obviously Reika. You created Rotary Craft,
Chromatcraft.
Chromaticraft. My bad. And if you want to introduce yourself, what do you do? What are you known for?
Well, I mean, Rotorcraft is how it got started,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then shortly after that, I say shortly, like a year and a half, Reactorcraft is an add-on, and then another 6 months later, Electrocraft.
Yep.
And then a few mods on the side in Geostrata, Die Trees. Those two grew into Chromaticraft, which of course is now the largest of all of them, feature-wise and code-wise and file size-wise, and performance-wise. But yeah, Rotorcraft and Chromaticraft are definitely the most well-known of the two, or of all of them. But yeah, I mean, if people have heard of me, it's going to be through one of those two because I wasn't exactly one of the popular ones. I never have been and never likely will be. So
Well, that's why I wanted to talk to you because I think you're pretty prolific. You've been around for a long time. When did you start modding?
The Christmas break between 2012 and 2013. Specifically, so I was playing. I had just been introduced to Tekkit, 125 Tekkit, right?
Right.
I had immediately fallen in love with Buildcraft, so started a world with basically a stripped down version of Tekkit. Buildcraft, Red Power, EE, as it was called back then, Computercraft, a handful of others. And after a while, I decided, I'm sick of going and exploring for oil all the time. Right, going and finding a new oil well, and then having to teleport it back with those Buildcraft additional objects pipes. So I said, what, I'm going to make a mod that allows you to turn sugarcane into fuel, right, or sugarcane into oil specifically, right. I called it ethanol, imaginatively enough. Anyway, so I made a Nicolite furnace and a few other things, and this took like a month to figure out, the basics. Because at the time, I was not familiar with Java. I did have some programming background, but not object-oriented programming. And I was thoroughly unfamiliar with the back end of Minecraft with Forge and all these other things. So a lot of it was trial and error and whatnot. But eventually I did get this mod, which I never ended up using because the world died, as in lost interest shortly thereafter.
Okay.
But with that, I'd had the foundation. A little later, I decided that, hey, I want to make a tools mod because I'm sick of mining, all the stuff out with a stone pickaxe because I'm too cheap to spend the iron on it. Definitely too cheap to spend the diamonds on it in a mod pack anyway. So I thought, okay, so this means it's going to be made out of bedrock, which means you need to mine the bedrock, which means I need a machine to mine the bedrock because I don't want to just give the player the ability to mine the bedrock directly because then you can mine it to the void. Okay, so I need a machine. Let's make it a bedrock breaker. Now let's make an engine, and you can probably already see where this is going.
Wow, so it sort of just snowballed into what it is now.
Yeah, it was originally planned as a tools mod, and instead grew into a whole power system mod.
That's interesting.
There's actually a funny story associated with this. So originally I was going to go with a Buildcraft style power system, right, just because I wasn't imaginative. I wasn't able to figure out how to do that, but that's a good thing because midway through being stuck and not knowing what the hell to do, I dozed off at one point, had a dream about gearboxes due to stuff that was going on in the real world at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And woke up and I know what I'm going to do for the mod. And of course, that evening I programmed in 2 to 1, 4 to 1, 8 to 1, and 16 to 1 gearboxes, and that's how Rotorcraft really got its start as what it is now.
Oh wow! So I didn't know that. That's interesting. So it could have gone a totally different direction if you hadn't had that dream.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow, that's interesting. So what What do you, okay, so like that mod Rotorcraft in general is sort of one of those mods that like it seems like a behemoth to take on if you've never used it. Like you see screenshots of it and people, like people's crazy creations and it's like, oh my god, I don't know if I could even ever do that. Like what do you do in your daily life that you learned how to like that you learned like the mechanics for this? Like are you like some sort of engineer? Like if you can say like
Yeah,
what do you, okay.
yeah. I've
Okay.
got multiple degrees now
Okay.
in engineering and aerospace specifically.
Well, that
But
explains a lot.
yeah, I mean, a lot of the sort of the undergrad degree went into rotorcraft. Basic mechanical stuff, kinematics,
Mhm.
thermodynamics, some stress analysis stuff. This is like it was like all the equations that govern, the load limits on the shafts and the gearbox and such. Those were all determined by what I learned just a few years prior in undergrad. So
I love it. Has this helped you at all? And like, I mean, it's sort of it's basically putting like all of these like ideas and dynamics into real life. Well, not real life practice, but into some sort of like a practice. Has this helped you at all in your life? I asked King Lemming this in the last episode. Has this helped your career at all? Have you used your Minecraft mod in like your resume or something like that?
I mean, putting things on a resume was kind of difficult in my situation because I do everything in Minecraft under an artificial name.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I have been able to put that, I've got programming experience of various languages,
Hmm.
and now it's various languages on the resume. That was a thing I could do.
That's
Um,
cool. Well, I mean, so what I've watched your what sort of differentiates you from a lot of people is I mentioned this in the pre-interview that you actually play the game, and I noticed that a lot of modders don't play the game. They sort of mod, and through modding they lose interest in actually playing the game, so that sort of makes them, not lose interest in Minecraft in general, but they become more of a modder than a player. But you, and the way I actually found out about you was through your Let's Plays on YouTube, and your world and your world you made, it looks like you like min maxed everything in your own mod. You like your world is ridiculous. And is your mod made specifically for you? Like, do you cater your stuff just like, oh, I want to add this for me? So, and that's what it sounded like in the beginning.
that is largely true. I don't know if I'd use the term cater because it implies excluding others, but
Yeah.
the yes, a large quantity of the features in Verticraft, Chromatocraft, and others are based on, hey, I want to have this thing, and I don't readily have the way to do that. I'm going to implement this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned the tools earlier, but much more uniquely, I guess you could say, is, for example, a lot of the Chromatocraft stuff. Like, Chromatocraft is a device, has multiple devices, in fact, for flood filling caves with light. These are designed specifically because I often find myself in a situation where, that's the best way to acquire resources in a fairly early part of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I am extremely high strung, like so high strung that I actually got jump scared by a block of quarried stone once. And
Okay.
point is that I do not have the nerves to go into a cave when it's dark with mobs in it, right?
Got it.
So flood filling it with light solves both of those problems, right? You can't really be jump scared if you can see the thing coming from 40 blocks away.
Yep.
Um, Also, light prevents spawns, of course. Anyway, so yeah, that's I've been told time and time again, hey, why would you ever make this thing? This thing is useless, right? No one aside from me appears to ever have seen the value in it. But I implement it because I very much saw the value in it and I use it every single time. Contrast to many other things. Um, I don't have a list in front of me, of course, of all the things that I've implemented because I personally wanted them, but that is a very, very long list,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool. Like, I mean, and the fact that you had to like, I don't know, that you had to like clarify, like, oh, it's not just for me. Like, I think that mods and who cares if you're putting it out publicly? Like, they're obviously a labor of love and created by you. Like, who cares if you put stuff in there that you want? Like, that it's your mod, And like, I think you've carved out your own niche amongst the tech mods that sort of can't be replaced. And this sort of brings me on to my next question: the elephant in the room. I mean, you're still only on 1.7, right? Like, you haven't made the leap to 1.12. Do you want to talk about that? Like, I mean, there's a huge gap in the tech mod world because the fact that you haven't
Yeah,
jumped.
I mean, there are multiple reasons for that. The chief among them, like far eclipsing the others, is just pure logistical issue. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
with the mods being as big as they are,
Yeah.
like this was actually brought up by someone random earlier today. Between them, they have almost a million lines of code.
Oh
That is
wow.
almost as big as the entire Minecraft base game itself. That is, as you might imagine, one hell of an undertaking to actually update. Especially when you consider that, especially when we're talking Wordcraft, Chromatocraft, especially Chromatocraft, there's they tend to be a lot deeper in terms of how they interact with the base game compared to like most mods, which just build on front-facing API stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that means they're more affected by changes which happen every update, right? And that means that not only do I have more code to try and update, just the sheer size of the mods, but more of it has to be thrown out and redesigned. And it's not a simple matter of like, oh, just some variable names changed, because they rip out, for example, an entire rendering system. Well, now Chromatograph, which exploited the particular implementation quirk of that rendering system, can't do the thing it used to do, and I got to find an alternative. That's I won't claim it's impossible, at least not most of the time, but it's still quite an undertaking. And so yeah, that's the primary reason. I estimate it to be many months worth of work.
Man, that sounds crazy. That doesn't.
Um, Good.
Well, what do you? I mean, do you think you'll ever do it if like 1.14 comes around and it becomes like the same kind of de facto that 1.12 is, or do you think you're gonna stay? Because I mean, like I said, I mean 1.7 still has thousands and hundreds of thousands of people probably playing it daily because so many good mods are still there. It's not like it's ever gonna be forgotten.
Yeah, I mean, I'll never completely rule out updating. I'll never say, okay, I'm guaranteed not to update.
Mm-hmm.
However, the criteria I always have for updating is, does it currently justify the work and the cost of doing so? And I've not felt that it has.
That's fair.
Um, One thing that, for example, this is just in theory, right? An example that would get me to update would be some version of Minecraft being like, hey, this is the last version of Minecraft. Whether that's because future versions are not moddable or because Mojang officially says, hey, we will not make any updates past this or whatever. Because then I know that I will never have to update again. That would definitely count very strongly towards me updating. Of course, that hasn't happened, at least not that we know of. But
Man, that would be actually kind of nice, wouldn't it be? I mean, like, because the modders have taken it to the point where it anything that Mojang adds, will just sort of be like, oh, okay, it's another stepping stone to just updating our game and getting us onto the newest version. It's like, I mean, no offense to Mojang, it's just like the stuff that they add. Either A, modders have done it before better, or B, it's just sort of like another mob or something like that. Like if they stuck to a version and just said, hey, this is the last one, like I think that would be one of the better things to happen to the mod community in a long time.
I agree. I mean, I've seen very mixed reactions to saying that, but yeah, I do agree that that would help stabilize things and help also guarantee, because there's another phenomenon is there's people tend not to, and this includes me, people tend not to want to put a lot of work into updating a thing or implementing a thing if they think it's all going to get thrown out 6 months, a year later.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's, I've seen many people say, hey, why bother back putting all these bug fixes in if Minecraft's going to be updated 6 months from now. Forge has often made this exact argument and said, oh, we won't bother including this fix yet, right? um, well, obviously this will stop being a problem if this update is guaranteed not to come, but
I think it'd be
I
a good
don't think
thing.
that's a likely outcome. At
No,
least not in
I
the sense of like, officially saying, "Hey, we won't update." In the sense of, hey, future versions won't be moddable. That's entirely possible.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah. Maybe switching over to the Bedrock version, as their main Minecraft version. I mean, that's something that we were calling years ago whenever Mojang was bought, and like it still hasn't happened. But you never know; it could still happen.
yeah, I was thinking a little more fundamental than that. Like, for example, I've heard of a change proposed. So I've been hearing about it for more than a year and a half now. Basically, it would replace tile entities, which I don't know how experienced you are with modding. They're basically the ticking object associated with
Mm-hmm.
the block. They are
Mm-hmm.
the core of how machines and other things work.
Yeah.
They wanted to replace these with a system that's much more like the JSON scripts. You could basically build prefabs. If you're familiar with factorial modding, it's kind of like that. You've got templates and you
Mm-hmm.
define some parameters, but nothing more.
So it's not as
That
extensible. You can't. It's not as moddable.
exactly, that
Yeah.
would kill modding as we currently know, because you couldn't build something that does something completely unique.
Yeah.
And to use an analogy from Factorio, Factorio does not have a concept of an entity called a shield dome, right? You can't just make one and say, okay, it's got this strength and whatever, right?
Yeah.
So to actually make that, which I did, you have to have like tons of fake entities and tons of scripting running in the background. It's comparatively unperformed. It's got all sorts of weird little loopholes, and it's very, very inexact in comparison. And that's a comparatively simple, concept, right? Something like the
Hmm.
Chromatic Crystal Network, don't even bother. It's not worth it. So
Well,
yeah,
like
if that were to happen,
it's sort of like a blessing and a curse, isn't it, with modding? Like it's so moddable. Like Minecraft inherently, just by being Java and like how Forge and the coder pack has been made, like it's so moddable that like you can mess anything up in the game. But like if Mojang dialed it back a little bit and made it official, quote unquote, like sure there'd be more out there and it would be more supported, but like you would lose some of the creativity that I think you have made, Thaumcraft, stuff like that, like stuff that really pushes the game into like new depths. I don't think it would be possible anymore.
yeah, having modded many games now with various levels of access, ranging from, hey, you can just define a couple of JSON files like Starbound, all the way up to all tons of custom coding like in Minecraft.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like no other game in my experience has the same sort of mod that, at least that I've modded, has the same sort of mod complexity, variance, and innovation that Minecraft does, because there's just not as much freedom to do such a thing.
That
Like the closest
yeah.
example I can think of is Space Engineers, which gives you code access, but it's very limited, right? They lock down just a few libraries. And left, right, and center, there's mods saying, hey, I want to do this feature, but I can't do it because the API doesn't allow it. It's included some of my mods. And what they accomplish is generally far more limited, with the exception of a few very unique examples. And even they have issues due to the restrictions.
Right, yeah, and I've said that all the time. Like I've mentioned that a ton. That like yeah, Minecraft I think is unprecedented in the modding community. Even like even Skyrim, which is such a huge modding community, it's still kind of reliant on the sort of modding APIs that Bethesda puts out there. And you only have access to sort of like things that the game already can do. You can't like make a whole new system. And I mean, I'm not the most um, experienced in Skyrim modding, but it's definitely not to the point where you can just add like crazy new systems. Like build. Imagine. I mean, it would never work in the Skyrim sort of world, but imagine making like a thermal expansion mod or like a rotary craft mod type thing, and sort of like that. It would be impossible. And yeah, like Minecraft really does just give you that. Like it feels unprecedented, and
Yeah,
I think that's what keeps it alive. I mean, obviously, modding's not the thing that makes Minecraft the thing it is now, but I think modding kind of keeps the intrigue alive, especially on YouTube, which is what sort of blew up Minecraft. Like obviously those people didn't stick to vanilla. What did they do? They went to modded, right? Like they went and did that, and that sort of kept Minecraft alive, at least in the public consciousness. Like, look at this crazy thing somebody did. Look at this crazy thing somebody did. I mean, look around here. I see you looking right now. Like, look at this crazy crap. We made a freaking talk show set with like a camera switcher that I'm doing right now, and like it's in a game where you're supposed to like build blocks. Like, it's weird.
yeah. I mean, I try not to overestimate the impact of modding, because just in terms of raw numbers,
Yeah.
the
Oh
modding
yeah. It
community is like
dwarfs.
what, 5%.
Right.
So it seems therefore folly to suggest that the mods are sort of having the majority of the impact on the game. That said, they certainly have a noticeable impact. If nothing else, they provide an out to people who say, "Oh, Minecraft's a kids' game. We'll try some of these mods and say
Yeah.
that." And secondly, they Minecraft is a game you can get bored of very, very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are some ways to keep yourself interested, especially if you're creative or whatnot. But generally speaking, you can get bored of it very quickly, especially if you play the game as it was "quote unquote" designed as a game. The survival experience. Mods, of course, allow a great deal of expansion on that and a lot of replayability with all sorts of different configuration. And so people who might otherwise get bored and leave the game don't, and that helps keep them playing and keeps the game being
Yeah.
talked about, and yeah, word of mouth and whatever.
Yeah. Where do you see it going in the future? I mean, within general, like, do you see what would it take to get it into the next level?
Uh, I I honestly have no idea. I mean, the historically, at least from my experience, the Minecraft modding community has largely been dictated through, I guess you could call it innovations. People occasionally will think up some whole new super impressive thing, and it sort of dominates the community for some period of time, usually on the order of a few months to a year.
Right.
And this one, of course, it is popular in its own right, but it also sort of sets a precedent that look what mods can achieve, and mods will still call back to that, years later. Um, I wasn't around in the early days of modded. I didn't even know Minecraft existed back then. But from what I hear, the early days of Buildcraft and Industrialcraft especially, they sort of set a new standard. Like, oh look what mods can do with all sorts of machinery and whatnot. And of course, then 15 other mods crop up doing the same thing, and before long, that grows into what becomes Tekkit.
Yeah,
At
exactly.
least the
Yeah,
tech side of it.
yeah. It showed that, hey, mods can work together. There was a that was sort of like, again, unprecedented in other modding communities. Mods working together and having this cross compatibility. Mods nowadays are made in mind of like, how can I work best with like these thousands of other things out there, right? That's the whole idea of like the ore dictionary and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I'm sure, for example, there will be a lot of people who would point to, for example, RF, the power compatibility as one such revolution.
Right.
I, of course, as you probably know, have my reservations about that.
You
But
pave your own path, buddy. I think yeah, I think RF would be too limited for what you need it for.
yeah, I won't claim RF shouldn't exist. Obviously, it has use.
Mm-hmm.
It's utility wants Gendustry, for example. No one wants Gendustry to have its own power system.
Right.
But the yeah, it's not something that should be applied universally. But my point is just, yeah, there are people, for example, who point to that as a revolution. In that, now you've got a whole bunch of mods directly working off each other, as opposed to sort of being compatible by, I guess you could say, being compatible versus acting like two parts of the same whole.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I just exhausted all of my questions. I really. Do you have anything else to say? Do you have any plugs? Do you have a Twitter? I don't know.
While I have a Twitter, I do not use it, at least not with any regularity. I've never liked the platform. I am known for being verbose, often excruciatingly so. So a platform that restricts your ability, like the length of your communication, is
Yeah.
exactly the opposite of the kind of thing I would normally find myself wanting to use.
Okay, well, since you're so damn modest, I'll pimp out your stuff for you. Everybody go download Rotary Craft, Chromatic Craft. They're all great mods, and I think you all should give them a try. Check out your YouTube channel. I think you have some great stuff on there. I don't know if you have tutorials, because do you have tutorials on there?
Um, I don't have tutorials of my own creation.
Okay.
There are people who've made spotlights and that, some
Yeah,
of which act as tutorials. Sentinel H is probably the standard at this point.
got it.
But
Okay.
yeah, my stuff just hasn't been popular enough to have a ton of people playing it, making wikis and whatever. There are wikis and such, but they're incomplete at
Got
best.
it. Well, I mean, yeah, just go check out your stuff, see the crazy stuff that you can do with it, and I recommend checking out the mod. Thank you so much for being on, man.